Bonjour tout le monde. Today we're learning about French relative pronouns, qui and que. A relative pronoun is a word which replaces a noun and links two clauses. Okay, we're going to talk about clauses, we're going to talk about relative pronouns, but this is just its raw definition. Here's an example that we're going to show how to use a relative pronoun with. We have Nadine aime le garçon, il est blond. Right? Nadine likes the boy, he is blonde. Now, if we want to combine these two sentences, these two ideas, then we actually can use a relative pronoun to do that, because these are two separate clauses. A clause is a word that has a sentence that has a subject, verb, and object. Both of these have those things. So if we want to combine them, instead of saying Nadine likes the boy, he is blonde, we can actually say Nadine aime le garçon qui est blonde. Nadine likes the boy who is blonde. So we're combining those two ideas, those two clauses, to make one, and we're using qui to do that. All right, clauses. Like I said, a clause is a grouping of a subject, verb, and object, or subject, verb, and description of the subject, or those kinds of things. All right, so Nadine aime le garçon is a grouping of a subject, Nadine, a verb, aime, and le garçon, an object. There are two types of clauses that we're going to focus on today. First is an independent clause. It can stand on its own. It has its own subject, verb, and object. The whole sentence makes sense all by itself. You don't need any other ideas from another clause to make it complete. So we have Nadine aime le garçon. Nadine likes the boy. Next, we have a dependent or a subordinate clause. It cannot stand on its own without a preceding clause because it doesn't make sense. So in our second sentence that we got, we had Nadine aime le garçon qui est blonde. Well, Nadine aime le garçon can function on its own, but qui est blonde, who is blonde, we can't just say that. We need Nadine aime le garçon. So qui est blonde is a dependent clause depending on Nadine aime le garçon. You can use these two clauses together if they're connected with a conjunction like a or parce que, or a relative pronoun, which is what we're focusing on today, qui or que. You can also combine independent clauses, and you'll end up making the second one dependent on the independent clause by either using a conjunction or a relative pronoun. Some important grammar vocabulary to know. We have subject, the person or thing doing the action of the verb. For example, Jimmy mange le sandwich. Jimmy is eating the sandwich, so he is the subject. A direct object is the person or thing having the action done directly to him, her, or it. We have Jimmy mange le sandwich. Well, what is being verbed? What is being eaten? Le sandwich. So that's their indirect object. Direct object. An indirect object is the person or thing having the action done to, for, or at him or her, or it. Okay, so if we have Jimmy jette le sandwich à Marigold, all right, à means to. So who is Jimmy throwing the sandwich to? He's throwing it to Marigold. She is the indirect object. A preposition or a preposition is a word that links two related parts of a sentence. They're placed before a noun to indicate the relationship between the verb and the noun. So if you look, Jimmy jette le sandwich à Marigold, we see à is our preposition because it's saying Jimmy is throwing the sandwich at Marigold. Marigold se fâche contre Jimmy. Okay, she's getting angry with Jimmy or angry against Jimmy. Okay, contre is our preposition. Jimmy sourit avec un grand sourire. Okay, so Jimmy is smiling with a large smile. Okay, you're getting the relationship between sourit and un grand sourire. He's smiling with un grand sourire. Now, our first relative pronoun is qui. And normally we've learned that that means who. But don't focus on the definition. Focus on the grammar function. Okay, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. But don't worry about qui meaning who and que meaning what. That no longer applies because we're learning how they're functioning in grammar. Qui replaces the subject of a dependent clause. Okay, so we had our independent clause functions all by itself, and then we have our dependent clause, which needs the independent clause in order to make sense. So we see Nadine aime le garçon, il est blonde, okay? Il est blonde is pretty much, it's depending on Nadine aime le garçon because we need to know who le garçon is in order to understand who il is, right? We're replacing the subject of that dependent clause, so we're going to replace il, and we end up with the sentence Nadine aime le garçon qui est blonde. We got rid of il and replaced it with qui. Nadine aime le garçon qui est blonde. Qui is linking the two clauses together, making qui est blonde dependent on Nadine aime le garçon. And in this case, because we're replacing the subject of a verb, qui is always going to be followed by a verb. So it's kind of easy when we're talking about subject replacement to remember that qui will actually be followed by a vowel or a verb. Qui can also be used to replace the indirect object referring only to a person that comes after a preposition. Okay, and remember our prepositions are things like on, at, to, for, with. An example, je vois une dame, je travaille avec cette dame. Okay, I see a woman, I work with this woman. Our preposition is avec. And we know that cette dame is the indirect object because is she the one being worked? No, she's the one being worked with. Okay, so it is the verb plus a preposition, which makes cette dame an indirect object. Je vois une dame avec qui je travaille. Okay, so instead of saying I see a woman, I work with this woman, you can actually say je vois une dame avec qui je travaille. I see a woman with whom I work. Second example, la fille est gentille, je parle à la fille. Okay, la fille à qui je parle est gentille. You can replace la fille with qui, and then you have to reorder your sentence to make it make sense. Que replaces the direct object of a dependent clause, okay? So we're not worrying about the independent clause, we're worrying about the dependent clause, and it must be a direct object, okay? For example, we have où habite le peintre? Je l'ai vu hier, okay? So où habite le peintre? What kind of clause is that? Well, that's independent because it can function all by itself. You can say, where does the painter live? Okay? But je l'ai vu hier. I saw him yesterday. If we don't know who the him or the it is, then we don't know what that means. So it's a dependent clause. It's dependent on où habite le peintre. So we can replace that direct object, which is here, the l'apostrophe. It's a direct object pronoun in this case. All right. And we can replace it with que. Où habite le peintre que j'ai vu hier? Where does the painter live that I saw yesterday? Or who I saw yesterday? Another example, j'ai acheté le livre, ma sœur l'a écrit. Okay, so I bought the book, my sister wrote it. Okay, again, my dependent clause would be ma sœur l'a écrit. I can combine them with que. J'ai acheté le livre que ma sœur a écrit. I bought the book that my sister wrote. Okay? Where does the painter that I saw yesterday live? Or the painter who I saw yesterday live? And I bought the book that my sister wrote. All right? That que is replacing the direct object of a dependent clause. And that's it. Make sure that you have all of these uses in your notes. And make sure to be totally prepared to discuss these in class tomorrow. À bientôt!